Last but not least, our last speaker, Mr. Adrian Hayes, an internationally acclaimed thought leader, extreme adventurer, author, coach, consultant, and documentary presenter. A regular commentator on British TV, he writes and speaks on pressing world issues, bringing a unique perspective shaped by his diverse career. Currently working on his third book on human development and society, Mr. Hayes has a deep interest in the challenges of modern society. Today, he will share his wisdom with the question, what if we remember and reclaim our humanity?
What a stirring and profound question. I think we're all ready to be inspired by what's coming next. Let's welcome our last speaker to the stage with a strong round of applause.
On the 10th of May 2025, a little over 4 months ago, I summited the world's third highest mountain, Mount Kanchenjunga, located on the Nepal-India province of Sikkim border. Completing, after a 20-hour climb from the last camp, Camp 4, completing a 1, 2, 3 of the world's 3 highest mountains, having summited Everest in 2006 and K2 in 2014. Kanchenjunga was the hardest of them all. Shortly after the summit, coming down, you can get the slide back on please, coming down off the summit, a fellow climber tripped and fell into me, pushing me off the sledge and dislocating and fracturing one of the 2 bones in my wrist, putting me out of action. I then, with only one hand to get down off this mountain, I soon ran out of oxygen, started hallucinating, started getting a condition called cerebral edema, fluid on the brain, and eventually passed out and lost consciousness at around 8,350 meters, and was left basically to die, as most people, almost all, who get haste at that altitude do. Waking up a few hours later, and realizing what the situation was, I somehow managed over the next 36 hours to get down this mountain on my own with no oxygen, with no liquid, with a broken ski pole ice axe, hallucinating like mad, absolutely devoid of all sensations, of so thirsty, so exhausted. Somehow I managed to get down to a height of 7,600 meters. Before I passed out again for the second night. And it was only when another Sherpa, a second Sherpa not my own, who saw me coming down, came up with oxygen and came down and rescued me, and we managed to get down eventually to a height of 6,200 meters. In short, I am very, very lucky to be alive. I very nearly died on this mountain, this remote mountain in eastern Nepal. And of the many questions I've asked many things about what happened, but one of them is has it changed you in any way? Has this experience changed me? Well, I can tell anyone, I've been in the personal development world for 20 years now, coaching, consulting, mentoring, and speaking. So we're always very aware of life and our own lives and how we react to human circumstances, life circumstances. But I think it has changed me in a certain way, and that way is to sort of realize, what makes us so special, what makes us unique as humans, what makes our values in this rapidly changing world, with technology and AI, the exponential curve really going to a near vertical stage. What really defines us from the animal kingdom? And the question I'm posing on this little short speech today is that thing called humanity. And what if we remember and reclaim our humanity? Now let me give you some examples. Firstly, what if we wake up in the morning and instead of checking our smartphones for our messages, our socials, our WhatsApps and our data, we actually took a few good breaths, drank some water, went outside into nature if you can, and appreciate, take some big breaths, do some stretching, rather than going on to our tech. I have a firm belief that our smartphones should never be in the bedroom full stop. Leave them in the kitchen, leave them in the living room. Our brains were not designed to go from this deep slumber, this deep state of sleep, going straight on to being bombarded by all this data. So what if we did this? I do a mindfulness focus of the day for 2 minutes once I come inside. So actually sort of connecting with ourselves and connecting with nature before we check our emails and socials and all the rest of it. What if we remembered and reclaimed our humanity by managing technology through the day rather than letting it control us? The book by Nicholas Carr, The Shallows, and Susan Greenfield, Mind Change, all point to how our brains are changing shape to cope with the onslaught of information that we're getting into them. Our frontal lobes have got a small capacity. They weren't designed to get all this information. And we are losing, by what's happening with us in the day, by constantly going through data on our smartphones, internet, emails and such, we are losing the skills of deep contemplation, of focus, deep thinking skills, critical thinking skills, and so much more. We are losing this because we are overwhelmed by technology. What if we remembered and reclaimed our humanity by managing social media, rather than letting us get us into a state of addiction? Social media has, at a stroke, from 2010 onwards, has changed the basic human need for significance. We all have this human need. We all have, for centuries before, a need to be significant. But suddenly with socials, that significance, which was largely internal, has been propelled 10, 100, thousands, hundreds of thousands, sometimes 1 million times, to get this external recognition, respect. And that becomes rather addictive. And subconsciously or consciously, when we become addicted to our social media, we're basically trying to prove that we are worthy to the outside world. We're basically saying, look where I am. Look what I've achieved. Look what I've done. Look at me. And that becomes highly addictive. And now if you are talented and beautiful, and you can climb big mountains and do marathons, you can do all these things, that's great. But guess what, folks? Many people aren't. And what does that make humanity? What does that make young people in particular? It makes them very anxious. Actually rather depressed. And you look at the correlation between smartphone explosion and teenage anxiety, depression, and it's very much correlated. I've actually I do a lot of work with schools, and some schools who take their students out on outward bound type weeks away without smartphones. And the first day, the children, or the teenagers, they're in bits, they can't do without it. And yet after a week, the feedback on all these programs, they wish it had gone on longer. Because you don't feel pressured to show your significance to the outside world. What if we look at the news, which has bombarded us every day as well, and take a rather detached view of that as well? Of the 60,000, 100,000 stories that go on in the world today, news editors are very, very clever. They put things that's going to attract them to our news channels, our newspapers, online things. There's something called fear porn. This whole thing, everything's a catastrophe, everything's a crisis. World War III, the world's going to end, climate crisis, climate catastrophe. Everything is there to make us fearful. Politicians use fear to control us, campaigners do the same. The reality is never like that. 99% of the world, on any 1 hour, day, week, month, year, is getting on with the basics of life. Working, studying, feeding, sleeping, eating, socializing, all the rest. That's the real news that takes place in the world. But of course it doesn't make the news. It doesn't make us fearful or outraged. So what if we remembered and reclaimed our humanity by being a little bit less attached to news, follow it still, but a little less, let's say, aggravated, angered by it? What if we remembered and reclaimed our humanity by realizing that the sanitized, safety-obsessed, cotton wool-wrapped world that we are trying to be lived in, our culture's changed, is completely unreal? Life is full of risks, and this desire to try and minimize or to cancel all risks in our lives by making everything safe is unreal. It only works if the world we inhabit after we leave school or college or university is this safety, sanitized, controlled world. Guess what, folks? It's not. We're going to have huge challenges. And it's only by exposing ourselves to these challenges, exposing ourselves to risks, to things we don't like, new ideas, new things, and failing. It's only by getting this that we can treat life's challenges in a positive rather than negative mindset. Now, the idea of small state has become a political weapon sometimes. I say, no, it's for our own human development. I say the state needs to get out of our lives so we can experience life with its hardships. Of course, we have to help the needy, the truly vulnerable, but most of us, the way we develop is by getting into these challenges. It's the challenges we face in life that define who we become as people, not the successes. What about if we learn the art of communication? A big word, communication again. But again, communicating by text, by messaging, rather than having that face-to-face conversation with people. Communication is a big word, but it means so many things. Listening skills, voice skills, body language appreciation, assumption work, feedback, agreements. All this stuff is all part of the communication umbrella. But we're losing it in the world of AI and big tech and everything like this. And one of the reasons I do firmly believe smartphones should be out of the school day is so we can actually learn the art of communication again. What about if we remember and reclaim our humanity by our ability to solve problems? The EIU, the Economist Intelligence Unit, does a survey every few years called the Skills Gap. The last one I saw that was done was 2019, and it asked the 300, 400 CEOs, MDs of multinationals around the world what was the key skills they were missing in their workforce. The top one was problem solving. Now, rightly or wrongly, and C-level execs I've been coaching say for many years, say people, Gen Zs, younger millennials, can't solve problems. Now that's a bit of an unfair categorization. I'm sure in this audience it's exactly the opposite. But there's no smoke without fire. Is it because we've grown up with asking every problem we've got the answer on a smartphone and what AI ChatGPT is doing us now? Are we losing that grey matter skill of the ability to solve problems? Biggest single example I can face is sat-navs in cars. I know people who go a journey of 10 miles or 10 kilometers they've done every day for the last 20 years. They still put a sat-nav on, telling them which way to go. Is that really what our humanity was about? And so many more examples. And what I would say though is I think there is a positive sign. There are positive signs. I find people nowadays, younger people nowadays, are looking for more experiences, not just stuff. There are more people hiking, running, rock climbing. My local rock climbing wall in Southampton was opened 3 years ago. Packed with people your age, pitting themselves, and there's not a smartphone in sight. They're pitting themselves, they're supporting each other to do these, the next challenge, overcoming the next challenge. And I tell you, when you're rock climbing, you're not thinking about your break up with your best friend or your financial problems or anything else. You're focusing on that next challenge. More people are traveling around the world, experiencing things, cultures and learnings, exercise, sport, getting into nature, all these things is happening more and more and more. And I think it's a positive thing to welcome. So I think there's a sort of subconscious kickback against all the technology that we're facing. We're saying we need to get back to our reality again. Which all brings me back to my experience climbing a big mountain, like Kanchenjunga, all the other big mountains I've climbed, or polar ice caps I've crossed, or jungles, or deserts. It's because when you are in this environment, and I've been gone for 2 to 3 months on some of these things, when you're devoid of tech, when you're devoid of all these external stimulants, the fear porn on the news, all the other things that's going on, life takes on a very, very simple meaning. It's about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the basic ones of food, shelter, warmth. It's about observing your observant muscles, your awareness muscles, your mind can actually think big things. You're seeing things that we don't see when we're glued to our phones. Your contemplation muscles, problem-solving muscles, critical thinking, deep thinking things get heightened. And you really are living every day, in fact even every moment, is a coordination of mind, body, spirit, climbing this big mountain, getting as much air in your lungs as you can, putting in the next TEDxACS to the next pitch, and really focusing, whilst having this greater awareness of around you, of the possible dangers. And that experience is second to none. And this is why when you come back off these big expeditions to the so-called real world, where we're bombarded with all this noise, and I have literally had to put my head in my hands and say, shut up! And I've literally had to go out and just reacclimatize, decompress, slowly to come to terms with what it is like in the world today. So I'm not saying, in conclusion, I'm not saying we'll go back to living in caves. No, society progresses, life progresses, the world progresses. That's change, and we should welcome change. But I do think there's a place of balance, there's a trade-off for these things. And whilst I said, it's managing our tech, it's managing the news, it's managing everything else, and it's really reclaiming, remembering what it is to be human. And I'll say one final thing. With all the divisions of the world and all the conflict and the misunderstanding, you get people around a campfire and talking, and you'll find we're all the same. Whatever culture, religion, faith, nationality, whatever, everyone is all the same. And it's the basic thing we've done since time forgot. Sitting around a campfire, sharing our stories, and sharing our own humanity. Thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Adrian Hayes, for that profoundly wise and eye-opening talk. A truly moving invitation to reflect, and most importantly, to act upon the challenge of reconnecting with our humanity in today's fast-paced and digitalized society.